and do that further work. We have been very fortunate that we were included in the CDS request through Senator Murkowski's office for the appropriations bill for $22,000 in material funds. Through that process, we had DOT reach out to us, or the area planner for DOT, with her concern about the fact that through the federal procurement process, those funds would be drastically whittled down from 22,000 to, she was estimating, about 5,000. So it was recommended that we reached out to Representative Vance's office, and we did. They were able to get us in touch with Director Marks, and he's been really responsive, working with another member of his office. They quickly included the city of Seldovia in the STIP last week, so that they can help us through, because that money, even though it's federal funds, it will transfer down through a DOT program, not directly through the office we were dealing with, but they were very welcoming and nice to Seldovia, and the fact that they want to help us be able to utilize as much of these funds as we can. I think when I saw, if I'm remembering correctly from the report I saw, that's only like a fifth of what we actually need to be able to resurface all of the roads. But it's a start, and we do have a priority list that we'll be able to work on. And that is something that I'm hoping in the future, when we have budget discussions with the council and public works funds come up from the 2% eventually after the road grader payment is paid off, I'm hoping that we can work towards a actual capital project budget, and part of that being road maintenance, and having, being able to annually have the council decide what the priorities are for those funds through the capital project, what roads need material maintenance and love, but it's a long process out. And I'll let you.
Yeah, no, I think it's two things. It's lack of topping. I think most of our roads don't have enough topping to turn over. And then the problem on Shoreline, it's just too narrow. I mean, if you're going to put any kind of center crown on that road, most of those will have a cross slope where it's going to drain one side or the other. But we also don't have ditches. We don't have appropriate ditches. It would have to be cross slope to go away and just go down the hill. If they were going to actually put a center crown on that, you would have, with that narrow of a road, you would have a pretty deep gouge in front of your driveway to try to actually roll material to the center of the road. So there's a couple, it's the geography and topography of what were dealt with when the original roads were constructed, and then the lack of material to. Yeah. You're just in a bad part of town.
Well, it's typically being cut away.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah. We need some more topping to give them something to work with, and then they can at least get some sort of crown on there. So.
And with that, are the folks who are doing
the weed whacking around the hydrants doing that on behalf of the city?
I have not been notified of who is weed whacking, and I'm actually really interested in
I know
who it is.
I'm sure. I know. I'm sure it's the folks who have done the whole project.
Yeah.
But they ended up harming personal stuff, and I just feel like it needs to be monitored.
Let's
okay.
Chat about that.
Yeah. It would be hard to know where my personal stuff was in the push key, but I knew where it was. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions, comments on the Public Works Maintenance Report? All right. Sounds good. We'll go ahead and move on to item K, public hearings. None tonight. Item L, unfinished business. None. Item M1, resolution 23-46, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Seldovia, Alaska, pertaining to the investment allocation of the authorized investments of the sustainable distribution of and the appropriate performance benchmarks of the Seldovia Permanent Fund as set in the asset allocation plan for fiscal year 2024 and that's found on page 19 of the packet. And we'll go ahead and have the city manager presentation.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm actually going to introduce Blake Phillips with APCM. He is online and has a presentation prepared for us this evening. Hi, Blake.
Hi there. So this resolution,
No.
Blake, I think we lost you.
yeah, no, it added me as a panelist and
Oh,
did
okay.
strange
That way you
thing.
can screen share if you need.
Oh, okay. I didn't, I might just screen share the resolution. Let me see. Oh, I cannot do that. I can walk through it though. So this resolution is just following up on our conversation that we had last month, believe last month or earlier this month, going over the allocation plan for the permanent fund for this coming fiscal year. What this resolution lays out is that asset allocation in very specific detail by asset class and what that target percentage is. And then it also lays out guardrails that ensure that we can only have so much discretion outside of that presented and recommended plan. On top of that, it defines what the authorized investments are that we are allowed to utilize. So again, that's another important protection for you so that it's very clearly defined and we can't go out and invest in Beanie Babies or something along those lines. It's very specific as to what investments we can use to implement this asset allocation. Another important piece that I'd like to point out, and so it also defines the sustainable distribution rate. And while Seldovia is not planning on making a distribution this year, it is clarified at 0%. This is just an important thing I want everybody to be thinking about, because this is really an important part of this entire investment process, is that we're creating this this investment strategy to accomplish a goal. And ultimately, the goal of this permanent fund will be to have some level of sustainable distribution rate, similar to what the state of Alaska does now. And they have a similar mechanism. So that is also within this resolution. And then finally, there is it specifies, how we are to be measured and what information we need to put forth in front of you, along with the actual performance of the fund, but give you proper yardsticks with which to measure us. And so all of these items are going to be something we're going to be doing on an annual basis. And with that, I think that's really the key points that I want you to be focused on with this. And those are all detailed in the resolution.
Great. Thank you, Blake. Okay, Heidi, do you have anything to add or?
Not at this time,
Nope.
just that the resolution is in your packet on page 19 and as Blake discussed.
Okay, sounds good. We'll open it up to council for discussion.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead, Vivian.
I think the resolution 23-46 is outlining exactly what our discussion has been when we went forward with the investments. It's thoroughly laid out. I appreciate that. And I have no qualms in moving forward with resolution 23-46. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yep. Thank you, Vivian. Anyone else? Okay. Yeah, and I agree with, I'll just add a comment. I agree with, Vivian. When you read through the resolution, it's pretty detailed in terms of, what, Blake was laying out there. There's a lot of financial language. I mean, you can look at all the different classes, the asset classes that they're proposing to, invest in. And so some of it's a little bit Greek, terms of the, what the target is, minimum max. There's a lot of different funds here. a certain amount of this, we have to put our faith in in Blake and his crew on what they're doing and what, in terms of the information that they're giving us. So, but I think in terms of the overall, resolution, that is what we talked about, and, I'm in complete support. We can go ahead and open it up, if there's any comments, questions from the public. Okay, and then we'll go ahead and bring it back to council for final action.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to accept resolution 23-46.
I'll second that. Okay, we have a motion by Rojas to approve resolution 23-46 with a second by Kennedy. Any further discussion on resolution 23-46 before we vote? Okay, hearing none, we will go ahead and vote on approval of resolution 23-46. All those in favor, Rojas,
Aye.
Kennedy,
Aye.
Peyton,
Aye.
Keithley,
Aye.
Sweat.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Resolution 23-46 is passed with a vote of 5-0 and 1 absent. Okay, we'll move on to item M2, action memorandum 23-06, a letter confirming the appointment of a Seldovia City Council member to serve as the council representative on the Seldovia Planning Commission Commercial Business District Subcommittee. And that'll be found on page 47 of your packet. And I will let the city clerk take that one.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we have a action memorandum before you to confirm an appointment of the council members to serve on the Commercial Business District Subcommittee. I know both Councilmember Kennedy and Councilmember Rojas have expressed interest in it. I don't know if there's any other interest by members of the council. But Chair Sweet has mentioned that she doesn't want anybody to feel excluded from the conversation, and she would be all right with more than one council member being on it or people being on it as private individuals. So with that, I guess I'll entertain any questions from the council. How you want to proceed?
Any questions, comments?
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead, Vivian.
I think if Councilmember Kennedy and myself would like to be on the commission and the chair is okay with it, then I think that's a great idea. More heads in there, the better. But I'm interested, but I'll leave it to council to decide what they think. But I'm okay with 2 people.
Yeah, there's nothing in code prohibiting us from having 2 people on there. I mean, we're allowed to, we can have 2.
Right, if you had 4 or more, it would be a quorum
Right.
and it would turn into a council
Right.
meeting and setting.
Right.
But I think that
Okay. Yeah, I certainly don't have any objections on both
The only-
council members being able to participate.
I was going to request a step aside from that, just because it's kind of conflict of interest. I own a business on the waterfront. I plan to attend those meetings anyway, so I'm going to be there anyway. So it's fine with me. If Vivian chairs that, I'm fine with it.
Okay, and I personally, I don't think it is a conflict of interest, even though you own a business. I mean, it's going to be, it's an organizational subcommittee basically to gather input. So I think your perspective as a business owner, I think is good. I definitely don't think it's a conflict. I mean, I think your side needs to be heard. And then again, it'll play out in the process what the final outcome is going to be. So. Okay, so do you want to, I mean, are you formally withdrawing them and you want to be?
No, I just comment to that last time, and I'm fine with it either
Okay.
way. It doesn't matter.
And I will
'Cause
say,
I'm
yeah.
going to get my 2 cents in either anyway.
Yeah, these will be public meetings, open to public, just like the planning commission. And we have several letters of interest from owners of businesses in the district that are going to be on the committee.
Okay. Okay, so Vivian, okay, yep, Harmony, go ahead.
Do we have any members of the public who do not own a business participating on this board as of yet?
We have one community member who does not own a business within the district that has submitted a letter of interest. They own a business, but not within the commercial business district.
So again, I'm gonna put myself in the line of fire here and say that if Mr. Kennedy is willing to participate as a member of the public, it seems like the business district is very well represented. And then I think that Vivian stands as a good uninterested party in the conversation. I really support Vivian being part of that conversation, and I'll be participating as part of the public. That's just my 2 cents.
Okay. All right, so again, I understand the little bit of the concern there, but I mean, the whole key word of that sentence is commercial. So most people that are going to have a vested interest on what happens down there are going to probably have either be part of a business or business owners or some interest in a business. Certainly there's going to be a percentage of the public that, you know, wants to see or hopes to see what happens in that area, you know, one way or another. So, and again, that it's part of the subcommittee process. So, John, I'm going to leave it up to you. Do you want to be on there or no? Okay. Okay. Fair enough. So, is there anyone else that has the interest of being on there other than Vivian? Okay. Yeah, so then we'll, Vivian, you are, okay, we're still in discussion here. So, I mean, are you going to want a formal motion on this to nominate that person or to, okay.
Yes, so it would be to approve action memorandum 2306 with the appointment of council member Rojas. And I would like to just extend to the council that if there are more than 2 or 3 members of the council that want to attend, even though it is a planning subcommittee, I know that they do want their voices heard. So we could talk with the planning commission about potentially having it be a joint work session between the planning commission and city council. If that's the direction the city council really wants to go. Otherwise, these will be meetings that will occur 2 meetings a month for a few months. I think it's like 4 months it's set up. And then that information will go back to the planning commission in its entirety and then potentially up to the council, depending on what's discussed. So there will be a lot of public process through these discussions. But certainly I know that the planning commission chair has shared that she wants to make sure that everybody's voice is heard.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, any more comments or questions from council before we go to public? Okay, we'll go ahead and open it up to public. If there's anyone on the public that wishes to comment or has a question on action memorandum 23-06.
I don't see any hands, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, hearing none, we'll go ahead and bring it back to council for final action, and then we would look for a motion to approve action memorandum with the appointment of council member Rojas.
I would like to make an action to move that we take on action memorandum 2306, appointing council member Rojas.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Keithley to Approve action memorandum 23-06 with the appointment of council member Rojas. We have a second by Peyton. Any further discussion before we vote? Okay, hearing none, we'll go ahead and vote on the approval of action memorandum 23-06. All those in favor? Rojas,
Aye.
Kennedy,
Aye.
Peyton,
Aye.
Keithley,
Aye.
Sweat.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes with a vote of 5-0, one absent, and that is the approval of action memorandum 23-06. And we did go from item M2 to M4. I assume that was a typo.
Yes, that's
Okay,
correct.
yeah, I wasn't sure if something actually got omitted from out of the agenda or anything. Okay. So that will actually, sorry, we should have probably corrected that. So that's actually going to be number 3. That's item M3, and that's going to be 2023 calendar year city council priorities, mid-year review. This will be found on page 52 of your packet, and let the city manager take that one away.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As came up often in the discussion this evening about priorities and the direction that the city is moving, or how the city is moving forward. The city council priorities for calendar year 2023, any year, is a really significant vehicle that helps city staff with time and budget for moving projects forward. And as we're a little bit past the mid-year, I thought it might be helpful if we just did a quick review of where we are with these priorities and seek council consideration if any priorities need to be amended or added. You can see the priorities are listed on page 52, and then I did do a quick synopsis on page 53. Just really the status of each item and work that has been done throughout the year and the last couple of years. As you can see, for improving city finances overall, that is something that we are constantly working on, from whether it's making sure we're collecting boat ramp fees to making sure that our budget as tight as possible, implementing signage and education. I did work with the Seldovia Chamber of Commerce this year for the planning process for the 4th of July, and hope to continue to do that for the years to come, and also to help facilitate the vending process in the future for that event and other events, so that it's a little bit easier and encourage people to be able to come and easily participate and vend and add to the event and other events throughout the city. The city partnered with APIA to provide public safety to Seldovia through the VPSO program, which was the reason was not budget related, but that did end up having a pretty significant impact on the city for the positive budget wise. And I'm hoping during the mid-year budget discussion, we'll be able to talk more about those funds and how the council wants to see those move forward. The Seldovia Permanent Fund being invested with APCM is a big one. I did receive the draft of the FY22 audit, as I mentioned earlier, and in all directions, the funds are moving forward and in just a little bit of a better place for each fund, as you can see for the last 3 items there. Future considerations under improving city finances, and this is just rough off the top of my head, so if council has anything to add to any of these items, please do, but continue practicing sustainable budget practices, harbor kiosk investment payback to payment to the permanent fund. I know that that's close to Councilmember Swick's heart, and she would like to see that happen. It was also listed. We made sure to include that 30,000 from the permanent fund to the general fund during the FY22 audit. So when you see that review coming up at the next council meeting, you'll be able to see that clearly stated there, so that we don't lose track of it and we make sure that that occurs in the future. Establish a fund balance reserve policy for the budget and develop a capital improvement projects budget, as well as invest in capital improvement projects to support economic growth and development, such as electricity in the boat storage yard and RV park, and invest in grant writing and support for capital improvement projects. This is something I'm trying to gauge council's interest in for a few projects, just off the cuff, Jack Loff, where the priority is, and that'll be not the next, but the third priority we discuss. There are a few other big projects looming, and then they'll come up as part of the CIP, but immediate needs. There is a grant program that's brand new. It's the Rural and Tribal Assistance Pilot Program. And the goal of the federal program is to provide funding for transportation projects that communities would like to see kick off the ground, and have some planning assistance. So the NEPA review, cost estimates, preliminary engineering report, those kind of items. I included it in the city manager's report for discussion, so we can discuss it there further later if you want, but it is also listed as a potential future priority. The city, over the last couple of years, it's come up a couple of times about the maintenance needs needed on the boardwalk. And I know that council did include in the budget some funds to do an RFP for maintenance of that area due to the nature of that infrastructure. But it needs some retaining wall maintenance underneath and some overall board replacement. City staff's been working pretty hard this summer to keep up with the needs as they occur. But there's also been interest that's come up to the city a few times and seems to be having more of a heavy lift recently to see the boardwalk expand around the harbor waterfront. So in speaking with DOT about the STIP, it didn't make it in there, but just trying to kind of plan ahead, I did do a rough draft amendment to our current historic boardwalk Bay Street project in the capital improvement plan, and called it historic boardwalk Bay Street improvements and expansion project. And in speaking with a few grant writers, it would be a really good fit for this rural and tribal assistance pilot program. So with council's permission, we are hoping to put in an application. It's a 4-page application. It's very competitive, and there's only $3,200,000 in the program, and awards are up to 320,000. So if you do the math, about 10 awards, but at least it will get the city, it'll start facilitating the process for that project if that's something that the council desires. I did not mean to jump off there, so I apologize, Mr. Mayor. We can go through each priority where it is now, and then with the additional information, just see where council wants to go, or if you guys want to read it, whatever's best for you. But I am happy to just kind of walk through this memo if that works for everybody.
Yeah, that's fine with me.
So that was my leap off of invest in grant writing and support, because I think we're going to have a lot of little opportunities and projects like this in the future that if there are some funds available in order to help with some of the initial cost estimates and things, they can really help get the ball rolling. Large priority 2, speaking of, is secure 20% local match for Block Street and raw water transmission line appropriations funding, with an emphasis on pursuing funding for major capital projects such as water, sewer, broadband services, Seldovia Safe Roads Program, and the dam reservoir. This is kind of taking an interesting turn. There is a waiver available for the 20% local match. So we are hoping to apply for that, or we will apply for that. Additionally, with the way the city is set to receive funding coming down through VSW, which will include potentially some of that planning for the raw water transmission line, Block Street sewer main replacement was not included at all in those plans and in those awards. So I would recommend that the city focus more on Block Street sewer main replacement for this project. Neither project was allocated enough funds to complete either one, but we can ask for a technical correction to move the funds towards the one project, and we'll see if it is approved or not. and then ask for the waiver. So that would take care of the 20% match. The other thing that the city did that was recommended through VSW is to see if those funds could come through VSW so that they could help through the management and disbursement, because they're already taking care of a lot of our major water and sewer needs, including the fact that they did provide an intent to award for the sewer wastewater treatment facility project, the Seldovia Slough improvements project, and the planning project throughout the whole of the city. So I did put in here under a consideration that this priority, because we're not sure where we're at with the 20% match, it's pretty specific, but maybe it could be looked at to open the priority as a recommendation to be a broader inclusion of the capital improvement plan and implementation of an overall funding strategy and budget process. In the asterisk, it concludes quite a few different capital projects that the city is hopefully working towards, and they're all kind of happening at one time. Large priority 3 is the future of Jackloff. It would be great to have feedback from council on where they want to go with this. The city has applied for 2 raised grants and did not receive either for 2022 or 2023. We have a 2023 PIDP application that we're still waiting to hear back. I had a recent discussion with Moffitt and Nickel, who is another engineering contracting firm, and they worked with the city for the original harbor improvements project. So they are familiar with the area. They reviewed our PIDP application and said, it actually looks really good. I wouldn't count it out. It could still happen for you guys. In the event it doesn't, they do have capacity at this point in time to move forward and help the city if that's what the council desires with an application for 2024 PIDP. They helped Sandpoint, who just recently they were awarded a 2023. So they've been pretty instrumental in some other communities and receiving these funds. They were very blunt with me about the fact that if we even did receive these funds, there is a process. There's another process through MARAD now where the Army Corps NEPA review no longer counts. They have to have their own review. And it's additional funding that will not be included in the grant. For Sandpoint, it was about $130,000 just for the review outside of the grant funds that they received. Of course, that's a long ways out, hopefully, maybe. Well, not hopefully, but maybe. But something that council needs to have on their back of their minds is if we did continue to pursue this big funding, there will be potentially additional costs, whether it be a 20% match, the NEPA review for the federal government. The other option is that there is a grant that should be opening up through the state, who the DOT commissioner said, this is the one you guys want to go through. And that's the Rural and Ports Barge Landings Program. So we will be working on an application for that one as well. If we partnered with Moffitt and Nickel, they are, their services have a cost. And I wrote it down in the city manager's report that I believe it was $17,000 for one application, $28,000 for 2 applications, and $8,000 for the preliminary engineering report. This isn't the only option. The city could also do an RFP process and go out for other bids for grant writing. If that's something the council wants to do and beef up an application, we can continue to write them in-house. Every year we get feedback and every year it's a little bit better. But we are missing some of that key data that would be in the preliminary engineering report. And I would recommend that at least we obtain that report to help with the data and the backup of the information and the application. But I know that there's a lot of other priorities and things happening within the city. So I'm hoping that council can provide some direction on where they want to go with that. And moving on to the next priority, medium priority, the rest of them should be a little bit quicker. Medium priority 1, improve broadband internet and communication capability in partnership with Seldovia Village Tribe, pursue rural broadband opportunities. This really hasn't had a lot of headway. I did see that Seldovia Village Tribe has a talk happening on Thursday with the AFN that I plan to attend and just see what that's about. But overall, we're still awaiting the FCC mapping, the state BEAD program, the HEA discussed a south side of Catchment Bay upgrade project, and just something that we haven't had a capacity to seek funding ourselves or a vehicle, but we're just waiting and watching to see what opportunities come up, and hopefully don't miss those and are able to jump on that bandwagon. Medium priority 2, land use management plan 2.0 is on the city clerk's priority list for this fall. So you should see that coming up. Medium priority 3, secure a positive outcome for the future of the value added building. Again, the same kind of status as earlier. Letters of interest are still being requested for the building. Therefore, lease signs posted on the building. We have had interest from members of the community. It could be a potential project for the next round of community development block grant funding. If there was a clear and designated purpose, I could really see it going 2 ways. If the city council wants to continue to develop it for a large project or a large development company to come in and do fish processing or some kind of a manufacturing, or I think from what I've heard from people in the community, there is a lot of interest to see a more of a business complex opportunity in the community where it's like a Kickstarter, program that could help provide some economic growth for these, it's an economic starter, I guess is what I'm trying to say, for
Seldovia's version of a strip mall.
smaller businesses to be.
Oh, okay.
I could see that if that is something that the community and the council wanted to entertain, because I've certainly heard 5 different projects that would meet that smaller model that would be interested in utilizing that space. There are a few other items that I think will compete with priority for the community development block grant, including the fact that we did not receive our match for the ineligible funds for the Seldovia Slough Improvement Project through the Denali Commission. I'm not sure if that would be a vehicle for those funds, but I know it was a vehicle for the match for the 20% for the CDS request. So I will look into that further. And then that, of course, will be a public discussion, because really it needs to come from the public and the council on what project you guys want to see us pursue. Strategic planning being another one, comprehensive plan, those will all come up as suggestions. But for now, the value added is remaining status quo. And I think it really is just going to take the council and community sitting down and having a discussion and deciding really where they want to see that building go. It seems a little daunting from the individuals that I have heard to think about investing and outfitting in an entire building without a firm plan or design. And so maybe that's something that the city needs to do. Small priority 1, continued AMHS advocacy, Testamina replacement vessel. As Councilmember Sweat said, she attended the recent AmHob meeting, and we've been in continued communication with DOT Commissioner Anderson. He has been very receptive, and it does look like we will have the best ferry schedule we've had in years, due in large fact to the fact that the Kennecott and the Testamina will not have the same dry dock schedule, because the Kennecott has been dried and in dry dock or been waylaid this whole summer without a crew. But hopefully they do get the crew online, and she'll start coming in March. She'll start servicing the Bellingham Yakutat route. Earlier on, they don't want her coming across the open waters to the Seldovia Kodiak areas during the winter. So that's why she would just serve southeast, and then coming March she'd come up, and we would just have a short break with the Testamina, potentially, if it all works out the way it says it does right now. But anyways, we keep working on that, advocating. It became really apparent this summer when we didn't have a voice at one meeting, and that's all it took for them to say, oh, well, maybe we can cut Seldovia out. And it was like, wait. So then, you go back to the next meeting, you start having that voice again. I think that continued advocacy, and even if it's the letter that we put in the laydown that I did and talk with Councilmember Sweat and Councilmember Rojas of like, hey, this looks amazing. Thank you. Just even those attaboys are important to keep up. Small priority 2, obtain Seldovia Volunteer Fire Department Fire Chief. Well, that was one amazing thing that came out of securing a VPSO through APIA. In fact, securing 2 VPSOs, Officer or VPSO Patterson has graciously agreed to be the fire chief. And when Amy Morgan, who's at Academy now, comes back, she is interested in being the assistant fire chief. And they are already working on cleaning up equipment, looking at what they need for a training schedule and who the volunteers are, and what new apparatuses or maintenance are needed. So welcome them aboard, but I think that has been accomplished, which is amazing. Small priority 3, retaining and promoting Seldovia's small town charm. And with a subcategory of identify city responsibilities, contributions, and networking for city parks and public land. It also includes marketing, public outreach, and partnerships, Seldovia Chamber of Commerce and Seldovia Recreational Service Area. Provide support to encourage visitors to Seldovia through partnerships and local organizations. We did complete the grant for the Chinook fishery marketing in Seldovia. You can see the signs on the back table. We've got stickers that can go out. We've got rack cards. We implemented the real loaner program at the harbor, just a way to promote an event into Seldovia. Additionally, like I said, I worked with the Seldovia Chamber of Commerce. I'm attending meetings regularly with them. Tried to help facilitate the 4th of July and that planning process. We cleaned up a public venue for the Seldovia Arts Council Summer Solstice Music Festival. I hope that's able to continue for years to come, and continue to sponsor permitting and insurance for the Seldovia Arts Council, 4th of July celebration, and New Year's Eve fireworks display. All to say in that really just trying to provide that business and organization support to make Seldovia a place that people want to come and visit. Future considerations, more active vending support during the 4th of July and other events, develop a capital improvement project budget, which is on here in a few places, invest in a capital improvement projects to support economic growth and development, such as electricity in the boat storage yard and RV park. Invest in grant writing and support for capital improvement projects, facilitate a business support forum with local businesses. This came about after having a conversation with Councilmember Keithley. And I think during our next budget process, and when we really do start being able to have those conversations on what a capital improvement or capital project budget would look like, they can all kind of tie in together, and how to get more voices and input on the future of Seldovia and where it's heading. Other priorities for consideration: new refuse truck for Seldovia. Our old refuse truck died on July 3rd on their very first run. They were at the RV park and just cut out. So it took a couple of hours. Our refuse crew and public works operator outfitted the flatbed once again. Besides, it was able to do a minimal run and at least clear out the harbor for that day, which is the worst day of the year to have your refuse truck go down. They're still operating it at this point, the flatbed, not the gray truck. We did have our eye on a pretty decent for Seldovia truck with a dump bed for 10 grand, but let it slide by too long. But I know operator Cameron is really concerned about this, and he's keeping his eye out for opportunities that the city of Seldovia can buy used just to get something on the ground in the meantime. Otherwise, they'll keep working on that gray truck and seeing about limping it along. But I think it's pretty disheartening that we're in a situation where our truck can die the day before a major event and be up the creek without a paddle. So I won't go further on that one. Outhouse, we do have this continuing issue where we don't have an opportunity or an option, right? That's readily available for us to dump our outhouses. And we also have this accrual of sludge that's happening in the bottom of our lift station over by Inside Beach right now that our operator Cameron would love to see pumped out so he can more easily look at what's happening down there. It needs a little maintenance and work. And we can't move waste on the ferry. We have spoke with SNA. There's a possibility that we can have a pump out through SVT this fall when they do their pump, but they are on a really limited capacity of what they can accept as well. And there's definitely a priority for individuals that are out in the village, and it's a large amount of waste. I imagine that they're coming in that's coming in for our community every year with the hat and knowing that the ferry won't take waste back on the truck, because we did call a few companies in Homer to see if that was an option, and it's not. We could barge a truck in and dump these outhouses and the lift station, or potentially take our truck, but I don't know that it's roadworthy. We need to check on that and barge it over. And then I believe that the city of Homer would allow us to dump into their septic system, because we used to do that, I think, back in like the 80s. It's when we stopped that this became a long-term issue. But just to throw that out there, that we're kind of in a little bit of a poop fiasco right now. And we're going to continue to work on that in-house. We're also looking to pursue energy improvements for the Seldovia City office. Finance Officer Yeager really is set on and intending to apply for a village energy efficiency program through the Alaska Energy Authority this fall. It looks like it would meet those needs. The multipurpose building is in need of new siding, painting, and interior updates, which could also be a future CDBG grant opportunity. The city is overdue for an updated review of our fire protection rating, and we'll be working with Officer Patterson and the new safety officer to get caught up with trainings and other implementations as needed. An emergency plan review and update, like the upcoming CDBG application. The city has an aqua grant and contract issued for a drainage map and stormwater management plan that we're actively working on. We have received letters of intent to award for 2 construction projects and 1 planning project through VSW. There's interest in developing a capital improvement projects budget, investment in capital improvement projects to support economic growth, as previously discussed, and investing in grant writing. The roads, also as previously discussed, are overdue for material amendments and maintenance. And we're working on $22,000 in funding, but that really is, I think it's about 1/5 of it. I'll double check on those numbers and bring that back. The historic boardwalk needs improvements and can benefit from planning funding as discussed. We've also discussed a 10-year strategic plan in which I did request a quote from HDR to facilitate a CIP review and strategic plan for grant funding. So when I get that, I'll let you guys know. Heavy equipment and archive storage out of the inundation zone. It's the dream list. Comprehensive plan and zoning review and update with an emphasis on land use management. Could also be a CDBG project. Value added building completion as discussed. Boat haul and storage yard revitalization project. Small boat harbor float improvements, which we discussed earlier. Washateria, affordable housing. I could go on, but these are just some rough ideas that are in our CIP and that have been discussed over the last couple of years of potential priorities. And I'll leave that to council from there.
Okay, thank you. There's a lot of information.
Sorry.
Nope, all good. We'll open it up to council for discussion. Who wants to go first?
Mayor Campbell,
Yep. go
is
ahead.
this something you're planning to do, have a workshop and discuss these priorities, or you looking for answers tonight, or?
So typically we'll have a work session will be held for the city council in November, December area to discuss next year's. This is just more an overall review of this year's. If you'd like to have a work session, in the next couple of meetings, we could to have a further discussion. But there'll be a more thorough discussion review process coming up in a couple months. This is just where we're at now and if there are any
Okay.
changes.
That's
More
what
of
I
a
couldn't
mid-year-
remember.
more of a mid-year check-in.
I
Yeah.
couldn't remember whether it was time to review this completely or, okay, thank you.
No, just if you need anything changed right now, or if there's anything you have heard tonight that you really would like staff to switch and focus more on.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question.
Yep. Go ahead, Vivian.
I'm not sure exactly where it is, but what were you referencing where you had letter of intent for 2 construction projects? What is that? I'm afraid I don't.
Thank you. I'm happy to report that VSW did send a letter of intent for both construction projects that the city of Seldovia requested funding for. One being the Seldovia Sewer Improvement Project, and the other being the Sewer Treatment Facility Project. We did have them as resolutions for approval on the tentative agenda for this meeting, but after speaking with VSW, their process is a little bit slower to get more of that award information out. So it'll be at an upcoming meeting, but that's about 5 million in grant funding that will be coming through the city to upgrade those areas of need, as well as an additional 125,000 for a planning project that took into consideration. We submitted 8 planning projects, which were areas of concern that needed to be reviewed and planned for future funding, including Vista Avenue, sewer, Anderson Avenue, water, the dam and reservoir, and raw water transmission line. And so they decided to accept all 8, but they're going to wrap it up in an overall review of the community's needs for water and sewer. That way, out of that discussion will come more preliminary engineering reports and potentially future opportunity for construction funding for some of those projects.
Okay, thank you. If the council were interested, I think having a work session whittling through what the other priorities are for consideration might be a good idea to start whittling at it before we actually start making decisions in November, December. Is that what we're thinking? For our
That's a
new
typical
priority.
timeline.
Yeah, I mean, so Vivian, you're thinking council member, excuse me, a work session here in the next couple months then prior to getting into that, into the meat of those meetings?
Yeah, just to hash it over a little bit might be good, because there's a lot of good information here to whittle through. It would just be, I would be encourage the council to do that, but it might just be a good way to step off into this.
Yeah, I think, with a few of these things, I like to kind of piggyback off that one I look at. I know broadband, things are changing rapidly in our world here, right? So medium number 1 is approved broadband internet and communication capability in partnership with Seldovia Village Drive. Probably since this came out, and I'm not saying it's a full replacement for broadband, but since we voted on this, Starlink is now out and in wide use all over the state, in Seldovia, out in the village, and that has been a game changer right out of the gate. So, that would be something I wouldn't want to talk about obviously tonight, but in a work session, I think that's a great opportunity to bring stuff up like that, which may, maybe there's more to the story on that. I'm sure there is, but maybe that lessens that priority. Obviously, I remember when we talked with the tribe about that might be an opportunity to reach out and find out, they will probably know more out in the village than we obviously are going to know. So, but yeah, that was just one option on the communication side that I saw that I'd definitely be interested in looking at.
Right.
So yeah, I agree, Vivian. I think, yeah, the next couple months here, we pick when things start to wind down after the season's over here, we get into some, work session to get that out in front of us. Cause I think this year will be critical with all the, Alaska's going to start seeing some of this funding trickle down here. So we need to make sure we've got all of our ducks in a row like we've been doing the last couple of years and be prepared for more of these grants. And then hopefully next time too, when I know, just not to digress a little bit, but I mean, we took some of our this year I was a little disappointed in, the two federal appropriations that we got. And unfortunately, both of them came up short on the dollars, right? So I think that'd behoove us to, next time we do whatever is submitted next, we have a real reality gut check on that. And if we need to, even reach out to one of the engineering firms before, and I mean, if it's a quick over the shoulder review, to get an idea, if they look at that and go, hey, yeah, we're way off here. So we need to it's a dollar amount, right? We could have easily added 40% to those numbers and probably still got it and been covered. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think 40% was probably added. I'll have to go back and look. There was a significant chunk that was added, but it was just not enough. And I think it was a matter of receiving the information, because we did reach out to an engineering firm, but we didn't receive it in time
Right.
for when the deadline was. So I mean, that was something for consideration, is that second priority be more focused on just overall capital improvement planning.
Yeah.
And that way in the future, we have a better idea of what we are actually pursuing.
Yeah, I mean, we're
and
better
moving
off now
forward.
than we were years ago, obviously, and that process has been evolving, and I think we're learning, right? I mean, we're learning every time we get a grant, and if we're short, then okay, well, we don't want to go through this again. So we need to continue to improve our processes on this. So,
Which is why the question, not to throw that back out there, but why the question of Jack Wap, and I'm not asking you guys to decide tonight, but I really am hoping that everybody can give some individual consideration to what you want to see moving forward. If it's worth spending some funds on, like I said, we can keep doing it in-house. But I think we're just going to keep missing it just a little, we're just a little bit short with some of the technical details and not having that preliminary engineering report to really beef it up. Seems to be, that's where we keep getting hit, is with the technical details.
Right.
We have the story.
yeah, you just need somebody to put a bow on it now. So sell it. So that's what it comes down to.
Mhm.
So, all right. Any other questions or comments on this before we go to public? Okay, we'll go and go to the public. Anyone from the public wish to weigh in on the 2023 calendar year city council priorities? This is our mid-year review. Okay, doesn't look like we have anybody that wants to weigh in on that. All right, we'll bring it back to council. If there's, nothing too crazy or no one's, wanting to offer up any kind of emotion, we can take no action on this and let everything ride until we get into, a little more robust process and where we can think things through. I wasn't anticipating that, unless there was something super crazy that we're going to, get in here and change something quickly, overnight, without a, pretty good detailed discussion and a lot of thought put into it. So, but I'm open to, if someone does want to make a motion, I'm certainly open to that. Nothing. Okay. All right. I think we'll take no action on this and just let it ride. And then, again, we'll look forward to a fall work session here and a lot more discussion before we get into the year-end planning. That sounds good. Okay, let's get wrapped up here. We'll go into the city manager's report and then we'll get finished up here.
Well, thankfully, we discussed most
Yes,
everything.
we did, actually. We just, in your report.
And thank you guys for allowing me to just speak a little bit about the priorities, because even if no action is being taken tonight, we do continue to work on these items. And it's nice to be able to have this discussion prior to the CIP discussions, because it can help put your priorities at the forefront for facilitating that process. Moving into the city manager report, I would also like to point out that there is a notice of public auction for the disposal of abandoned property, Guskimo, and the laydown. That's happening this week, that auction. So if anybody wants to put a bid on the Guskimo, you can come into the city office.
Does that mean they got to move it too?
It does. That is a requirement of the bid, is it has to be
I'm not
off
doing it
city
though.
property.
Sounds like a real beauty.
I did mine for the year. Thank you.
Laurel, you need that as a yard ornament.
Uh,
I could fit it in my yard.
You probably would.
So moving on to the city manager's report. I didn't include in here that the harbor was having a little bit of a refuse issue, where it just got really out of control last month and the month before, and a lot of loose garbage mixed up in with bagged garbage. And it was taking our refuse crew over an hour every time that they went to that harbor shed to clean it out. Which is just too much. So we did implement a new strategy, and so far it seems to be working for the most part. There's still some loose items, bigger loose items, but not toilets. That's a good thing. There was 2 in there when I went and looked at it a month ago. It was crazy. But having a can outside for loose garbage to focus on loose garbage, and then the cans inside should potentially, they should be bagged garbage. And if somebody doesn't have a bag, they can even go to the harbor master's office and we will supply a bag, because it's cheaper to supply a bag than it is for our people to pick it up at this point. So just putting that out there. Seldovia Arts Council did request that they do a mural on the fire hall door as part of their in plein air. And I did put that out to our council champions for retaining Seldovia's small charm, and to our fire and EMS executive board. I've heard nothing back but positive comments, as long as it's fire and EMS related, and that we have a draft provided that can go to that same board, just to make sure that they approve of what's going to be put on the doors, as well as to talk about upcoming maintenance. So unless city council has any objections or wants to have a more in-depth discussion about that at the next upcoming meeting, I did email back today and said, unless I hear anything tonight, please proceed and get us that draft. Tsunami warning after action review. There's quite a bit of information in here. A few takeaways. I attended a KPB meeting this last week with VPSO Patterson, Clerk Diamond, and myself. NTWS, the National Tsunami Warning Center, and NWS, the National Weather Service, who's based out of Anchorage and works closely with NOAA to put out further warnings. We're both on the call. It was really great to be in a room with everybody and hear the same information. We've had this discussion prior, but it just was really more apparent now what the reasoning or what the problem is behind these tsunami warnings that keep occurring. This was our 4th one, as was mentioned by a few different entities, including KPB and NTWS, that happened for similar reasons, being that the National Tsunami Warning Center has a polygon system in place for their warnings. And it's based on a breakpoint where they have to meet the next level's breakpoint for the area that the event is going to occur. Their system includes the Kenai Peninsula Borough as one entire area. So if an event is happening in the Kenai Peninsula Borough or next to the Kenai Peninsula Borough, the entire Kenai Peninsula Borough is going to be issued that warning. That was the phone message. Then it goes to NWS, the National Weather Service. They then monitor it in Anchorage for further information, and they can put out further warnings based on the information that they have and receive. They did that during this last call, determined that the Kenai Peninsula Borough was not going to be impacted, so they didn't push out further information, nor was there further communication from their department. However, without that information, KPB did push out a warning because of the information that they had. NTWS knows that this is an issue. They are working on a plan. They want to implement a partial county program in the future, a partial county warning system, which would allow them, or borough in our instance, to send out warnings to sections of counties and boroughs instead of the entirety of the borough. But they're looking at at least a minimum of a 2-year implementation process. So with that, we have potentially 2 more years of being impacted by this system the way that we currently are. KPB did mention the possibility of writing a joint resolution or a joint letter that just really speaks to how this is negatively impacting all of our communities. Mayor Machichi was on the line, representatives from each community, about just really how concerning and disheartening this is, that this keeps happening over and over again. When that call went out, they knew it wasn't going to impact our area, but because of their policy, they had to enact our area. And then to further that up, there is an AWA hotline phone system that only 3 entities within the borough have access to, because it's a very secure system, including Homer PD. And they received information directly from the state, and I'm not sure NTWS, I'll have to double check, that let everybody know that, no, this is not going to be an issue for KPB, but only certain groups were receiving it because they're the ones that have the phone. So I guess, long story short, I had a meeting with KPB. I then had a meeting with our fire and EMS and our VPSOs, because the other thing that happened during this call, and I did put a debrief in here if you guys want to talk more about the call specifically, but the other thing that occurred is I decided on my own to take a more graded response. And I did not activate fire and EMS. I did not request the equipment to be moved. I knew the location and the epicenter of the event. And from past experiences, this being my 4th from a pretty similar area, and that we had at least an hour and a half, 2 hours before a potential wave would even hit. I did take it upon myself to decide to wait before we activated that. We had further discussion on Friday about what that could look like in the future, and how we can implement a more graded response for the city overall moving forward. And I had a lot of support for that through the individuals that were there. We'll have a meeting in the next week with staff that weren't present at the time, and just have a more overall discussion of how we can implement a response that'll be it'll be like a 2 scenario response. And one will be, if the epicenter, if the event takes place, and we know there's a few scenarios, Flat Island and Augustine area, that event is coming, that's run for the hills. You may have 15 minutes, like, let's go. And that's a full activation. Most other scenarios, they're going to have a little bit more time. And because we know that this is a prevalent problem, that we're going to potentially see warnings for times that are not going to impact us, as we have in the past, we'll take a little bit more of a guarded response, which will mean automatically opening the EOC, because if the warnings are going, people are coming. We had 40 to 50 people that came up this last time. We have a lot of people not from the area that don't have enough awareness, that's their instinct. People that are panicking, they want a place to go. So we're going to implement the EOC always when the warnings go, and we'll be there. The harbor always clears the harbor and calls the residents on McDonald Spit as well as across Seldovia Bay, just to give them that information. And then we'll evaluate from there unless there's some concerns from the public or community. That's the direction that we intend to go. And like I said, I could keep going on about this, but there is a debrief. And if you guys have any questions, please let me know or want to discuss the actual event and the way things went during it. But that was where the overall takeaways.
Yep, sounds good. Laurel, you have a comment?
Yeah, so I'm curious if the city still holds the position that social media posts can't extend beyond the City of Seldovia Facebook page, but one in that event, so great that we had the Homer Police Department sharing their information. And I personally had reached out directly to Brett Higman, who's our local expert, one of the leading experts in the state of Alaska on tsunami awareness. And so reached out to him, and he quickly engaged with folks along the coastal system and reported back to me his anticipation that it would be a non-impacting event. And so with that, chose to push that information out. And I think it's just very lacking that the city has no online voice, and even on the city's own Facebook page. I just think if there was a post, I didn't see it, I searched for it, I would have shared it onto the chatterbox for sure. But lacking that voice, I just felt like that was a opportunity to lead in wisdom. Again, continue to beat that stick that we lead in wisdom and support resilience rather than anxiety. But I think you have a known platform that is effective, and you can make a post that doesn't allow for commenting. So if it's an issue of archiving, that's already answered. But I'd like to know why you continue to have a policy that doesn't allow you to reach the greater audience in as quick a manner as possible. Thank you.
If I may kind of speak on that, I was going back into my evening of that because I sat and had the quick discussion because my husband and I where we're at, we're just outside of our house there. And I had 10 guests in the house, 3 different parties, ranging from 4 years old to like 65 years old from all over the country, all very confused at 11:30. And so, we looked and had our same kind of reaction, and Chris did as well. And I said, we're responsible for these people. They don't know what's going on. I have to go in there and explain what's going on. But with that, not with the knowledge I had, I told them what our options were, but I was also looking for that guidance of like what, as a community, what we were doing, because we have that knowledge, but like collectively, are we gathering up all these visitors and taking them to the school right now? Or are we assessing and, waiting for that? Because when I have like a 4-year-old who's now freaking out, there's an earthquake, and I've got these 2 guys, they're half dressed, and I'm giving them their choices. But I think for some, especially that are hosts to those outsiders, that's where I went to, because I can listen to the radio and such, but our community, like for our choice here, we know what we're supposed to do, but we also know what the history has been. And if I could have look, once I saw Brent's post, I was able to say, okay, yes, like this is what we were talking about. And I still offered like anybody who wants to go. And at that point, some of the more local people were like, we're going to hang out here. I had 2 guys who were like, and then it was all clear. And I'm like, okay, we're good. But I think that would be definitely very helpful, because that's usually my quickest place to look, is where the community can make a post, somebody who, and if the city is, because I can see, and so I was looking and I said, okay, city's moving, but then I look out my window and I saw the church and I saw the Giles, and everyone's just looking out their window at each other. So it was the second time I had to deal with it as well since I've been here. But I think that would be something that if we can figure out a way.
So I'm gonna
maybe
jump in here too.
Okay.
So there's a couple things, and I'm not going to comment on the policy. I'll leave that to you to talk about the policy, but I'm just going to talk real quick about that night. So now with the information in here and what you did that night, I don't really know I'm just going to play devil's advocate here, what you would have expected to see in a post. So I'm just going to throw that out there. Would you have expected to say the sirens are going off, go to the EOC's open, go up there, or I'm making a decision that just stay home and don't go when the sirens are clearly telling you to go. So there's a lot of confusion going on there, right? I'll tell you what I did. I got on the National Tsunami Warning Center like I do every time it goes off, and I read the deal, and the first thing it said at 11:35 or whenever was that the areas, which areas were not, there's going to be no wave generated. That's what it said from the National Tsunami Warning Center site. No anticipated wave due to this event, right? And then me and Heidi were texting back and forth about 2 minutes after that. And that's what she just said. Regardless of what it says there, the sirens are going to go off. And I told my guests, because I had 75 people down there for a wedding. Half of them were drunk. Half of them, their phones didn't work. And they were all confused. What do we do? I said, well, here's what my phone says. You guys make your own decision, but I'm not going up there because I don't believe this is an issue. And furthermore, because of where this occurred, if there really is an event like we just talked about, you're going to know about it because it's going to be blasting. That horn will start blasting and people will start talking. And everybody's phone will start going crazy because Kodiak will be wiped out long before we're wiped out. So, I mean, there's a lot of weird things and strange things that happened that night. Even me, I didn't realize all this confusion, what's going on. So I think this issue right here, I think we do need to do some more posting on multiple on our site, on the Facebook or whatever. This is a complicated scenario. It's very confusing, and it's also very scary if it's 11:30 at night and you don't know what to do.
Yeah. And I was kind of piggyback on that. I looked at the same things that you did and went in with that. And what happened was then those sirens went off. When I then gave the choice and I said, I have the van, we can go see if people are at school and people are ready. And then that's when it got more confusing because I said it went off, but there wasn't an all clear. So then they were like, well, what do we do? And I had explained too, because in the back of my mind, I had just gone to the event that the tribe hosted where we had everybody come and talking about the unpredictability of these earthquakes and that there could be things that change and that. And so I had that in the back of my mind that I shared that because I said, I'm going to speak because this is your choice. This is, what I would be doing, but we, would do that. And so I think more or less what I was looking for in that moment, it was probably more when the siren went off that I was just looking was like, is at that point, like, was the city taking things, going up to the school? Is that kind of what the consensus of the community was? Because I can make my personal choice, but I needed to shuttle those folks up there. And
yes, so that goes back to the confusion of you've got one agency telling you one thing, and you verbally hear a siren and voices of another agency telling you something else, and not fully knowing that it's policy driven. Right. Yeah. I didn't know that. Yeah. Go ahead, Laurel.
But Mr. Mayor, what you also had was no voice from the city government. Zero voice. So what I'm advocating is that even if it's simply that the city states this is occurring, these are the responses that you have as an option, that there be something.
Yeah.
Right.
Like literally Laurel Hiltz is speaking on your behalf because you're not speaking. And normally there's something. And it was a gap, and I get it, but I'm just saying to you all as policymakers, and I do think you're the policymakers and the city manager implements your policy. I think that it's not, I don't think it's good use of a known resource to not use it. And I'm encouraging you all to make the decision to say we have the ability to reach a greater audience And we're neglecting to do so. To what reason? And that's what I'm advocating. So I have lots of opinions in regards to the city's history of response to tsunami warnings. I'm so thankful that the borough is advocating for change. I think the state needs to be advocating for change. I think we need to be strident voices about it and not sit back and continue to let this happen. Because when a person gets on the chatterbox and says, I'm scared, I don't know what to do, they need to have an answer. And it's not okay to me that there's no answer. So I'm personally messaging them, giving them as much information as I can. Now, on a tribal government perspective, our thing is, let's revisit that same talk, and I've got it recorded. Let's get it out there again, and so that people can listen and learn and know and understand, because we have so much transient stuff going on, but please be a voice. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you. If I may, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Laurel. And if you guys are sharing that video, maybe give us a heads up and we can share the video as well. I agree with the no voice, and I can speak that to a little bit of that. We also had very limited information, but I agree, still getting information out there. There was that was a fault on the city side with a limited staff and resource trying to operate the EOC and provide the public information on my end. So we have implemented Liz as a city clerk in the future. She's got her instruction card, and we're going to continue to talk about what that looks like so that she can be the immediate voice of the city. We do not post pages, and this is a pretty standard overall government practice because of the fact that it is a private page. If we have council members conferring back in there, it can be a quorum, it can be a meeting. I've actually seen council members be recalled for that. However, if that is, I understand where Ms. Holtz is coming from, and I can see how in the event of an emergency, that is a significant resource. So even if it was a matter of us sharing to the city page and then somebody taking it upon themselves from the city crew to then share it out broader to the chatterbox in that moment. The reason why we typically don't is because we do spend over a couple of grand a year to archive our social media posts for public records requests. That's really important with the Freedom of Information Act. But in a limited circumstance, an emergency circumstance,
You can turn off comments.
and turn off, but it'd be nice to have people be able to say what they need to say. And maybe that's just in that instance, we know that we need to take it upon ourselves as staff to go back in and snapshot and capture it so that we have it for future.
I'm
use.
just going to chime in though. This is why I don't do social media.
Mhm.
I agree. Turn commenting off. I
Mhm.
mean, I don't think it's a place because you're just going to get a bunch of wackadoodle crap.
Mhm.
That's all you're going to get. Push
Yeah.
the information out. I mean, this can be a whole nother discussion. We don't have to solve this tonight.
Yeah.
And we should have this on the agenda
Sure.
and discuss this, but no, I don't want to hear what everybody has to say. Push out our message. I mean, that's just me. And I'm not being an a-hole about this, but 99% of social media is garbage.
Mhm.
You push out the information and people do with it what they want. They don't got to comment about anything. They just take the information and do with what you want.
And they can comment elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, that's my thing. I'm very passionate about it because I think
Okay.
that's just the way I feel. But yeah, push the information out. I think we do our job.
Yeah.
People do with it what they want.
Uh-huh.
And then we go from there.
So we do have a process within the city, and we have cards that we're implementing that has a set process and numbers on the back of individuals to call who all is in charge of what process throughout the city. But it is lacking in resources and staff. So maybe we can reach out to some key resources in the community. If that's okay, I can have that conversation that even then for our public information officer, that we could pinpoint a few advocates of information that can also additionally help share information. I don't know. That seems like that might be a reasonable approach as well. Because if you have one person trying to share all the city's information, I think it could be more fruitful to have more voices in that time. Of course, in that situation, we didn't have a lot of information because we
Right.
had KPP's information. I'm hoping in the future we'll have Homer PD's information, which seems to be more relevant at this point. But with the information that we did have and with the new protocol we're hoping to implement or we'll work on, it would be to the tune of, there is a tsunami warning, here's a location and what's happening. We can share the NTWS information and just say, like you said, the EOC is open at this time. The city is not moving equipment and is awaiting further information.
So, and I'd be curious, Harmony, I'll get to you in a second, but I'd be curious too. I mean, Homer City Council has to be discussing this because their police, I was told their police went down and started booting people off the spit and they were hostile. So, yeah, I mean, bad deal. I mean, ours is just one little piece of this, but yeah, when you've got hundreds, if not thousands of people down there, I mean, the RV parks were packed, everything. So, this was a mess. I think this is a good opportunity for us to go back, revisit our emergency operations plan and specifically get some of this stuff. And we do, you're right. We need a phone tree. We need a better system with the amount of limited resources we have to be able to push information out that's accurate in a short period of time. And it's not just a tsunami. I mean, it could be any kind of large, huge event.
And my brain just kind of went off on when Laura was talking about, and you guys started saying phone trees, is that we do have these two large governments here, our city and the tribe, and we have all these goals of working together. And it seems to me, because I've tried to go to a lot of, as much as I can to learn over the last year and a half of this community from all those sides. And I feel like we have resources on both sides, and especially for emergencies, making sure there's some sort of partnership there, because we have the crossover, the people are all living together, and that could make it easier on everybody. And that communication would probably be a lot quicker through as well. So I don't know what that looks like, but we can work on it.
Yeah. And I don't think it would be hard to get there.
No.
I mean, during an emergency, you just want leaders to step up and people want information, right? That's
and then when we're talking about, short staffing and less people, we, work as that team, get everybody together, then it's not all on just a couple of people to be looked at.
Fantastic. So, and then if that works for the council, then in the future, that will be the process, and we will get something more substantial and a hard copy into the emergency operations plan. But for the interim, it'll be a two-step process. So one is a run for the hills, and the other is let's slow down a little bit and evaluate the situation, because we know we have this ongoing problem.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good idea. Harmony, we'll get to you.
Sure. So it seems like this has been pretty thrashed out. I was just wondering, Heidi, I was looking around the city website and I didn't really see any information about tsunami warnings on there. I feel like that would be something that'd be advantageous for the city to pursue, is putting some sort of, little link or page for that information to go on the city website. And then in an event of a warning, whether it be like every single warning that we've had thus far, which is a big pain in the ass, I'll just say, as somebody who has to haul children up and out of bed. It seems reasonable to be able to, like, if it's an issue of the city needing to be careful about its litigious persons and comments, maybe if we had that page that we could direct people to, and then you could update that, have some sort of protocol for updating that, and then in partnership with SBT vis-a-vis Laurel Hilt, of course, she could share that update during an event to the chatterbox. And maybe that mitigates the issue of the city having to deal with putting stuff on their own webpage, or it could go straight from the city's web page to the city's Facebook page, however that works. But I just feel like, we have so much information locally. We have so many talks locally, but so many of those happen in the wintertime. And as our hosts are telling us, their guests are waking up, and there's, that's a scary sound to hear in the middle of the night. But yeah, I think that having some sort of information readily available year round on the city's webpage itself would be super easy. Put it up there and then update it as new information comes along, including that inundation map. That would be a nice piece to add. I guess that's really all I had to say. I guess in defense of the city, I'll just say that everybody in the middle of the night is struggling. Everybody has, as a city manager, she has a lot to coordinate. She has a lot of decisions to make, a lot of things on her back as people are dealing with guests and small children or people who are intoxicated. You guys, sounds like you both did as well as you could. And, we just need to always just be respectful of the fact that like we're all humans, all doing as much as we can, and we're all scrambling in circles. And for those people who are stressing out on Facebook, how lucky are we to have you, Laurel? So proactive, so on the topic. My first thing I did was went to Facebook to see how you were covering the situation, and you did great. So thank you to all of you who are doing that. Good job, you guys.
Mr. Mayor, if
thanks
I
for-
could
yep.
follow up to that real quick.
Yep.
Thank you, Councilmember Payton. I really appreciate that feedback. We do have an emergency preparedness page and the tsunami map is on that. But that makes me think that we need a link and more information on the homepage so that people can go from the homepage directly to the emergency preparedness page and make sure that that is updated. Additionally, I'd like to just throw out there that to update and amend the website during an emergency is a lot slower process than going to our Facebook page. So we can do that, but I think our initial reaction is it should be as fast as possible. So Facebook page, get that out to, we'll work on a phone tree and partners in the community. I think that would be a great way to move forward. Some key individuals to share information to directly and then share it to the chatter box so that we have the information out there and in a quick and efficient manner. And then the updates on the website would come later, probably after an event, to be frank, just because of what is required to update those. But I really appreciate the suggestions.
Sure. I was not at all trying to make your life harder, whatever works best for what your processes are. But anyways, yeah, my point is just that we all have to cross so many hoops and there's so much red tape all the time. And I've been behind the scenes. I've been up there at that school at 3 a.m. with everybody huddled down with all their kids. And like, you guys are amazing. You work so hard, and sorry for anybody who is having to deal with scared out of towners. That would certainly be hard.
If I could throw 2 more things in there, just to clarify that we did start moving city equipment that evening, but only because I had 1 public works staff and I was working on getting a second one as backup to help move. So I knew that was going to be a long process should the event, because at that time I could discern that it probably wouldn't be an event, but I had no facts behind that. So in the event that there was an event, we did start moving equipment. However, in the future, with this policy being implemented with the council's blessing, we will not, unless we don't have that information for sure. But if it's from standpoint, I guess what I'm trying to say, we won't be moving equipment right away until we have more information. And secondly, the siren update is happening. So that was the other thing that came out of this is KPB was talking about how the siren system that we have now, they know is an antiquated system. When the warnings go off, they can't even pinpoint who is initiating the warning from their system. Yeah. So they have scheduled for this month and the beginning of next month. Seldovia is on the list for August 3rd and 4th. And part of that, from my understanding, I'll double check, is that there will be a loud hailer on it that the city will have access to and be able to provide additional information throughout the community on a local level.
So we're physically getting an upgrade,
Yes.
like in a month or
like next week
here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
So
it's on,
that will help with messaging as well.
it's
Wow.
August
Good.
4th and 5th now.
Yeah,
on the
4th and
updated
5th now.
schedule.
Okay, it was
Okay.
updated. So
Huh.
just 2 more takeaways.
That's a start.
I couldn't understand.
Well, I never did hear if there was an all clear, and I was asking, did they issue an all clear?
But it was like after they got off like 2 times, and then it was
I just heard a bunch of mumble at the
Just if
end.
The voice said it, no siren. Yeah.
Yeah, and I heard that and I couldn't hear what they were saying. Okay. Okay,
That's good feedback.
that's a problem.
That's a problem.
Mr. Mayor, if I may?
Yep, go ahead, Vivian.
It's just a couple of little things. I guess, one, does the city not have on our website the links that people can go to so they know to go to the City of Seldovia's website, click on the link about tsunamis and find out updates? Do we have that on our webpage?
We have information located on our emergency preparedness page, but we will make that more prevalent because it sounds like that's not getting out there to people. So we can put a link on the homepage.
Right, that way they could go to the tsunami center or whatever.
Yeah, and make sure those links are included too.
Okay, great. And you know what? When I was laying in bed and heard the thing go off again, you know what I did? I asked Alexa. I said, hey, Alexa, has KPB, what's the deal with the earthquake? Oh, here she comes. Stop, Alexa. Alexa, stop. Anyhow, she gave me my answer. Alexa, stop. She gave me my answer. It's been canceled. I said, great, I'm going back to sleep.
Oh, that's
I think
funny.
it's a good conversation. Yeah, good conversation we're having about how to make it, how to get the access to everybody. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I'll just put a closing comment on that. No, and I appreciate everyone's passion. I mean, all around, truly. I mean, it's no one's getting anyone's business here, but everyone's passionate about it. And the bottom line is it's up to us to make sure that the community is safe, right? If in the event of a natural disaster. So I think it's just behoove us to get our act together and figure out the best way that works for, not only the inside the city, all the residents, the local surrounding area, to make sure we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. So, all right, we won't beat you up anymore. Let's get done with the rest of the city manager's report, and then we'll get wrapped up here. We're already 3 hours here
Okay.
without a bathroom break.
Sorry, guys. Pretty much everything else has been discussed. Jack Loft Bay Dock. I think we'll have to put that on the next meeting. That was actually number 3.
Yeah.
That was taken off. That's why you saw 3 and then 4.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay.
On the agenda.
Okay.
Jack Loft Bay Dock next steps. So if you guys can think about that and have some consideration for that for the next meeting, if you want to spend some money or keep going or do something else, we can have that more thorough discussion. Refuse truck, we already discussed. We do still have the request in with HEC. That's kind of on hold right now. The last I heard, they received more requests than they anticipated, and everything was on, everything's on hold.
Do it all.
So I don't know that we can keep waiting on that. We're going to just keep our eye open for a new truck and then see how that goes. VSW funding, we discussed. No Denali Commission grant, we discussed. We do have the state revolving fund application that we submitted. So worst case scenario, that's a loan with a pretty good forgiveness program involved for the portion of the Seldovia Slough Improvements Project that's ineligible for funds. That's the non-full-time residents connections on the slough. We can also we'll look into pursuing that maybe for a CDBG, and we'll keep looking for other funding sources in the meantime. Historic boardwalk we discussed, and that'll be part of the CIP. And if council doesn't have any opposition to that, we will try to work on this 4-page application for planning assistance. It's probably a long shot that we receive it, but I'm kind of excited that we'll be moving forward in that direction or in any direction, unless you guys have anything and any opposition to that. Community grants, we talked about the technical change and trying to put money towards both projects. The time period for that application is 2030. So we have some time. We don't want to wait till the bitter end, but it'd be kind of nice to see what happens on the VSW front while we work through this process. Road material was discussed. Smolt grant was discussed. The materials here. Outhouse was discussed. Staff update. The public works position is still open. I'm excited to say when I went back to get my computer. There was an application on my desk that said Public Works. So we've received one out of 7-ish months. I'll have to review that tomorrow. We also posted a position for the safety officer. Jamie Martin is leaving us and going on to do some different things this winter. However, she's still helping out until we get somebody hired. We did have 2 interviews last week. We have another interview potentially this week, and we'll make the decision based on that. And she'll help train. Refuse position is also posted, contingent on Robert King provided the city with his official last day. He's pretty sure that's coming up, so it can be a long hiring process. We posted it knowing that that's coming our way. And our senior meals assistant position has been posted. The individual in that job has left Seldovia, so we're left needing to fill that. They're on the alaskajobs.com as well as posted around town. And then just under continued pending projects, a few things at the beginning that are new. We're still working, or we began working with HDR on the city's drainage map. The city, this is kind of exciting, but still it was disheartening at the same time. The city no longer has any missing documents with the IRS. So since prior to Jan starting at the city 3-ish years ago, we've had this issue with IRS where one report wasn't filed on time or the way it was supposed to. And since then, it's just kind of snowballed. And even though everything's been filed, the payments haven't matched the filing because of the reports. Anyways, you guys, I know have heard it in the past, and that was affecting our best practice score. Well, Jan last month got news that all of our documents are squared away. We're good with the IRS. She let our local government specialists know, and our local government specialist said, well, that's great. But we decided we're no longer utilizing the IRS as a scoring guide. So we still needed to get it done. It's fantastic. I'm glad it's done, but it won't impact our best practice score either way. A mechanic from NC Machinery did visit Seldovia to investigate the fuel tank damage on the new grader. And because he was here and had some time, and I had already kind of discussed it with NC Machinery, he did take some pictures and did an initial inspection of our other equipment. The hope is that they'll give us a quick appraisal and just like a life expectancy and an inspection report for each machine. So we're looking forward to seeing that. That'll come your way, Councilmember Kennedy. And then VPSO Morgan started her academy training today. Jim Morba is going to work with the city to complete the fire hall shower this month. The city did hire on Craig Bernard to clean the multipurpose building gutters. They are bad, and we just don't have the personnel right now to do it. Seldovia's Assembly Representative Mike Tupper will be present at the next council meeting. I'm guessing Zoom, but he'll be able to provide a legislative update. Like I said, we had the audit, FY22 draft audit, so that should be at the next meeting for approval and discussion. It does council, I'm hoping, has availability for a work session prior to the meeting. That way they can do an in-depth overview of that draft and answer any questions that council has, as well as potentially talk about personnel policy if we make it that far. The mayor and myself will be attending the AML Summer Conference in Homer from August 9th to 11th. The Conference of Mayors will be coming to Seldovia. I think you're still on board for that, right?
Yep.
They'll be coming to Seldovia on August 9th. So you'll see a lot of mayors throughout the state here in town, which is exciting. We had an underwater ferry dock inspection, and we're awaiting that report. Radzi attended water treatment and distribution training in June of last month, and now has his provisional 1 for water treatment and distribution, which is exciting. Safe Streets still working on with KPB. Seldovia Boatyard impoundment procedure still moving ahead. And like I said, still moving ahead on personnel policy. Upcoming projects are the same as that we discussed. The last thing I'll throw in there is that for enclosures, there's the after action review from the tsunami, the winter schedule notice, along with our public comment from the city of Seldovia to AMHS pertaining to that winter ferry schedule, a letter to KPB about the planning commission appointment, just asking that in the future they have some more consideration for Seldovia and a more of a public comment process, and just an overall what equity looks like for representation in the borough. as well as KPB Resolution 23048, which is a resolution to put an advisory question on the ballot to change the regular election date to November. They held a meeting last week about it. It was postponed, the resolution, to August 1st. So if you have any comment or any, if you want to provide any comment, August 1st will be the meeting for that. And of course, it's just an advisory question. So it'll take into account what the voters want. And then as the assembly member who is sponsoring it stated, then he would hope that the assembly would implement change based on what information that they receive. And then per the last city council meeting, which feels like ages ago, there was a discussion on city council vacancy procedures in relation to planning commission vacancy procedures. And I was wrong. I provided wrong information at that meeting, that I just wanted to address that the Seldovia City Council vacancy procedures are the same, or pretty much the same as the planning commission vacancy procedures, and those come out of Alaska statute along with the oath of office requirements. So that information is in the packet as well. Thank you, guys.
Okay, thank you, Heidi. It's good info. All right, any questions or comments from council on Heidi's report?
I just got one.
Yep.
Do you know if was there any work done to the float that goes towards the Laura S in the last couple of weeks by city staff?
I'm sorry, repeat that.
Any work done on the float that goes to the Laura S
I'm
by city staff in the last couple of weeks?
I'm not aware of that, but I can double check.
You know, I was down there cleaning fish later in the evening, and I heard some screw guns going and some hammers, and somebody was working on that dock.
Yes, there was some work on fingers.
Was that Arc and Fire?
I believe so, yeah.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
We did contract with Arc and Fire to
Okay.
do the finger pins. I didn't hear that they initiated work,
My
but I
eyes
knew it
aren't
was
good enough
happening.
to see who was down there, but I
Yeah.
know there was some work being done.
Yeah, we did contract with Arc and Fire.
Okay, anyone else?
I guess I'll say it here. So I'm really excited about all the stuff that's going on. Heidi, I think you're doing a fabulous job. And I am ecstatic at the revival of that boardwalk project. I think it would be fantastic if that came to be. So is Jerry still? Oh, good.
Yeah.
Jeremiah,
Yeah, we're talking.
okay, good.
Yep. I also am in support of that, so I have no objection to trying to work something out. It'll be a long process, obviously. Just the concept right now it's worth revisiting.
I heard there's a full scale model that was done by Jerry's daughter. He was going to bring it in, but I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, he wants to get the committee together and then start working through the process again. Just making sure, number one, that that everyone's on board along the waterfront. So, because it's all going to go across private property. So, I certainly don't have an objection to our pieces. So hopefully we'll see. So he said so far so good. So we'll see how that goes. So a lot of work, obviously. Okay, thank you for that report. Item O, informational items not requiring action. O1, the declaration of candidacy period will be open from August 1st through 15th. Form is available at the city office. There's two or three people this year. Myself. You're up. No, I know, but I'm just saying your seat's up.
Yes,
My seat's up. And is there a third one?
Harmony.
It's me.
Okay, Harmony's seat's up. So we have 2 council seats and a mayoral seat up for grabs.
And there is
Sounds like amazing opportunities.
in the lay down, there is a declaration or notice of candidacy
Okay.
in there. So 1 mayoral seat and 2 council seats.
Great.
And the forms really are ready at the city office. So if anybody has interest, you can come in and you can't turn them in until the 1st. But you can come in anytime and pick up the packet, or they're available online. And deadlines up to you.
Sounds good. Item O2, Seldovia Municipal Election will be held on October 3rd, 2023. Item O3, the city of Seldovia has impounded the vessel Guskimo and intends to sell it by auction by sealed bid. You do have to move it according to the city manager. Bidding opens July 24th, 2023 at the city offices and closes July 28th at 3 p.m. Bid forms are online or can be picked up at the city office. Item P, executive session, none. Item Q, council and mayor comments concerning items not on the agenda. Rojas.
Just a big thank you to everyone for tonight. Have a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Kennedy.
I don't have anything further tonight. Thank you.
Okay, Peyton.
None for me.
Okay. Keithley.
I have one question. With the Guskimo, if nobody bids on it, does the city then have to pay to remove it?
The city then has the option to remove it, yes.
Okay.
So we would.
I wasn't sure if it was like
of it.
option or what. Okay.
You want it?
No, we could like put out a donation thing and raise enough to get it out of there.
$1.
A yard. That's about a pizza slice.
Put it in a circle there.
Okay, Sweat.
No, well, again, just thanks for all the information tonight. And I do want to just make a little comment, not that it really matters, but I am not running again. And I'm sure that's going to make some people happy and some people are just assuming I'm going to run. But I'd like you guys all to encourage other folks a lot younger than me to run and do their civic duty and be a crazy person for the next, I don't know how many years, but I did it for 10 years and I'm, but I've seen a lot of good stuff happening in 10 years. It's been very challenging, eye-opening, and I'm pretty proud of some of the things that we've accomplished, So good job, everybody.
Okay, thank you. Yep, and I'll just say thanks to everyone that attended tonight, council and all of the discussions. So, and to staff for putting it all together. Our next meeting will be a regular meeting held on August 14th, 2023 at 6 p.m. And I'll look for a motion to adjourn. Yeah. We get a motion to adjourn.
I want to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion to adjourn in a second. Any objection? Hearing none, we're adjourned.
Okay, good night, everyone.
Thanks, Vivian.
You
Have a
bet.
good night, Harmony.